Hey guys, what's up? Hope you're all doing good out there today, and much appreciated you taking a little time out of the day to watch the video. And today I'm going to give you guys some juice on a jig and using a pork frog with it. Now, we have talked about this very little in the past because up until recently I haven't found a good source for pork frogs, but I want to show you guys the Blaukat old school jig in correlation with the Papaw pork on there. I'm going to show you guys how to rig it, and I'm going to talk a little bit about when you want to use pork over soft plastic. So it's going to be a lot of really good hardcore hogging information on this video here. And again, if you guys are interested in ordering any of the Blaukat old school jigs, you can get them at Baitworks online. I'll include the link in the description. You can order them from there. And as you guys know, the Papaw pork, you can order it just by going to the Facebook page and type in Papaw pork toads, and you can get them there. Okay, let's talk a little bit about the jig and pork frog, guys. I'm a hardcore jig and pork frog fan. I mean, you guys have heard me talk about it before. It's something that I probably won more money in my career on a jig and pork frog than any other setup there. So I love using a pork with it. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to show you guys how I rig the thing. Now, here's the pork frog here that we're talking about, the Papaw pork toad. And I'm going to do a video, guys, at a later time here, probably this week, on how to modify this pork frog, because pork is inconsistent. That's just part of using pork on there. It's not as consistent as plastic, and there's some things that you can do to it to give it some more suppleness and also give you better hook turn penetration and action. But for this video, I'm not going to go into the pork modification, but I will this week soon. But I'm going to show you guys the setup here. Here's the Blaukat old school jig we talked about, and the Papaw pork toad on here. So start out here. I'm basically going to show you how to trim the jig around it, because that's what you have to do. And the old school jig, I purposely designed it with a long skirt so you can trim it to different lengths depending upon the trailer you're using. If you're threading it on like a frog, you need a longer skirt. If you're threading it up on the shank with plastic, you need a short one. So anyway, we'll rig it up here. Always come through the bottom meaty part of the frog when you're hooking it on. I see guys hooking frog on sometimes. They hook it upside down, but you want to come through like this where your pork is sitting like that on there. And the key on this thing, guys, is once you get your pork frog on there, you want to get your skirt, evenly distribute around it before you trim it. So what I'm wanting to do here is I want to trim the skirt back where I'm showing more of the pork here, but not too much of it. So this is what I'll do with the pork frog, is I'll start out about halfway up, and I'm cutting irregular. I don't want to cut like just square, flat, even. I want there to be a few straggly strands hanging down a little bit, but I'm wanting to expose a little bit more of the pork here. But I still want to leave it uneven. See how this is sort of jagged and uneven? I still want to leave a couple long ones on there, but I want to give more visibility to this part of it. So I'm going to trim through like that. So you can see how inconsistent that is. I got some short ones. I got some long ones. I'm wanting this this inconsistent look here. But guys, this setup right here with the jig and pork frog, that is a killer bait for big fish. There's something about the jig and pork frog setup that is going to get you bigger bites than you will get on any type of a soft plastic there with it. It's just a combination of a lot of different stuff. We'll talk a little bit later. So that's my favorite setup with it there. Now, the time that I want to use this over plastic, because I want to go over that a little bit. To me, it has a lot to do with water clarity. If I'm fishing water clarities over 3 foot in visibility, I don't use pork as much. Or if I do use pork, it's more for the smaller size casting. This is the jumbo frog here. This is the big one, and I use that a lot for the pitching and flipping. But if I'm casting it like on bluffs or rocky banks, I may go down to number 11. But if I'm pitching it and flipping it, I want water visibility of under 3 feet, and preferably in that 1 to 2 foot range. That's my number one thing for choosing pork. If I'm in 1 to 2 foot of visibility, I want pork on there. Pork has the time of the year and the water temperature has zero to do with it. I catch them on pork in 40-degree water. I catch them on pork in 95-degree water. I've won tournaments in 95-degree water, and I've won tournaments in 45-degree water on pork. It has to do with the water clarity in correlation with the type of cover that you're fishing and the size of bass that you're after. If you're on a lake that has a little bit better quality fish overall, or it's known to not be a tough fishery, pork a lot of times is my first choice. And it's really good anytime you're fishing around any type of wood. It can be laydowns, it can be flooded bushes, it can be flooded trees, it can be stumps, it can be boat docks. Pork and wood, to me, goes hand in hand. The other time that I use pork is if I'm like swimming a jig sometimes through shallow grass, but most of the time pitching and flipping it, I like it around some type of wood cover. And there's a lot of different other aspects we'll go into as far as the jig weight, jig colors, and correlation, but that's my basic foundation that I wanted to give you guys as far as when you want to choose pork over plastic. It has to do with water clarity, has to do with the type of cover that you're fishing. And also rock too. If you're fishing, flipping and pitching around rock in that 1 to 2 foot visibility, or less than 1 foot. I mean, a lot of times I'll use a pork frog, especially if you have like 4 to 6 inches of water visibility, and then I'll go to something bright like a black jig with a bright blue pork on it, or even a black jig with a yellow frog on it. Sometimes that works good, but primarily it's more off-colored water. I like pork in off-colored water. I like it around wood and some around rock too. So that's the setup here. But anyway, guys, this is I probably caught more big fish on this type of setup than any other one that I've ever fished before. Jig and pork, #1 big jumbo pork, 5/8 ounce jig with that, and I can't wait to try it, man. We got a tournament up at a Toyota Series at Lake of the Ozarks, and I'll definitely be having some of these on for that tournament here. But anyway, guys, if you want to order some, like I said, Baitworks link in the description for the Blaukat old school jig. And we'll be back this week, and I'll give you guys a lot of good juice on the pork frog modifications, because a lot of people, they'll look at a pork frog and say, man, that doesn't look like it's got much action. That thing looks stiff. But there's some tricks I'm going to show you guys to keep them straight, to keep them, give them more lifelike action, and just basically improve on it quite a bit more. And that's the thing about it, when you buy a pork frog, whether it be from Papaw or whatever, just the nature of the product of the pork makes it where each one of these things has to be cut up by hand, and each part of the pork can be different too. So that's just part of the art form of fishing with pork a little bit, is knowing how to modify it. So anyway, guys, just a few tips there on the jig and pork frog. Got a lot of good jig tips coming out here over the next week. We're going to be talking about jig colors, jig weights, different type of trailers to use, different trailers versus the colors. There's just a lot to it. So we'll go over all that too. So anyway, thanks for tuning in, guys, and we'll talk to you later.